So now it's
Mine
nice to kind of move over to the fantasy realm again.
Yeah.
Got a big one.
Mine was really real. Like
What?
on the witness stand real.
Oh, that sucks.
It was nothing big.
Uh-oh.
Just had a client refuting something I said. He was getting thrown out of drug court and was headed to prison. And I was like, nope. Shut him down.
Oh boy.
Yep.
Well,
That's good that people are like you are out there.
I'm lawful neutral. You can't sway me.
You're a Fultian.
Nah, not that bad. you're the good lawful ones.
Might be neutral good.
Yeah,
One or the other,
I
I'm
was
not
going
sure.
to say, I think I'm striving to be chaotic good, but I don't think some days
I'm not
probably
impulsive
that much.
enough. Yeah. Neutral
Yeah.
good sounds about right.
Yeah. Now I need to log into Twitch here too, so yeah.
Like I was saying, I have a meeting with Luke Gygax after this tonight, so right at 10. Yeah, he's hopping on Zoom to talk about GaryCon.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
The Blue Box, John wasn't on.
No, he's traveling for work, so
Ah, gotcha.
he had his game last night, but you know sometimes he takes off.
Okay. Yeah,
Good.
because
You
I
hear
can
Mike.
really-
Hopefully you hear me too, Patrick. Please say you hear me.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Let me just double check this. Woo!
Those things would be tough. Yeah. I don't know much about those.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would almost want to go into the Yankees first.
Well, we can see. No, but we have to tackle the dwarves. They're an interesting part of the setting. So, yeah.
I mean, I
I
got my
rewatched-
information, of what I know from my area of the map, but you know, I don't know anything about the elves in the Great Kingdom. That's something I'm not.
There are not that many in the Great Kingdom thing.
Oh, I thought there was that big forest right there. Isn't that
Well,
Grandwood? or whatever?
there are some, but not that many. Yeah.
I rewatched the Hobbit movie trilogy about a week ago.
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah,
thought,
I-
I haven't seen that in a long. I had not seen
That
it
was
since
me.
it was in theaters.
I missed my cue.
Oops.
That was yeah, we're good. I didn't realize that the music was going to end. I thought it was going to scroll.
I've started a project of reading all the Dragon magazines from 1 to, and not every article, but skim through them to see what's
Oh my
interesting.
gosh.
And when I started with Dragon 1, there an Elven article that kind of brings up, and that was kind of interesting to see already in 1. And there's some interesting Greyhawk stuff in some of the first. I've come to
Yeah,
first
events in
edition.
the south and eastern Flannis, it's called. There's those articles too.
Yeah, but
When
there are
was teasing. She's talking about when teasing about Greyhawk before.
Yeah, then
Seven
yeah,
King.
then there are some cool guys. There is one he wrote a series of like novels in the first ones, and in a second I have to figure out what they were called here. So we go into the Gnome Cache or Cache, I don't know.
Hey, Carlos.
Garrison Ernst. There's a whole bunch of interesting names and stuff. It's a story of a Dunstan, remember that name, and Theobald, and from the court novels, but it's not written by Gary. It's by the Garrison Ernst, and it's the Fallon and Roxas
16 months,
and Roxas. There's a whole bunch of Greyhawks names and stuff. Which,
By the way, Gamescape 3D is the giveaway tomorrow night. Some really cool and those roads, you see, they're giving away road sets and giving away. And I missed my cue here again. I'm slow tonight. Some really cool wagon sets, with oxen and all, really nice stuff. So. Yeah. So the scale is, Patrick. The scale on those minis is just a little off. Like I know Bill has a bandit, which is the Legolas figure, Bill, and it's just off, man. Yeah.
So Anna, I googled the gnome cache just now.
Yeah.
Because I've not read this, and the first thing that I got on here. I was also interested in Ernst part because there's an Ernst on Greyhawk, and it's this entry here says that Garrison Ernst is a pseudonym of Gary Gygax.
Oh, okay. See, there we go. Yep. So he wrote it under in his own magazine. That's gonna be interesting. Yeah.
So for all you waiting for the fundraiser event on that weekend, you see all this stuff that's coming on right now with Infinite Dimensions. And I'll mention this during the show. Infinite Dimensions has just come on as our 4th sponsor for Underdark Uprising, and they're going to give away an entire gold pledge package to a high sponsor bidder over a certain amount. So yeah, the whole shebang, all this stuff in STL. Oh, that's pretty cool. All, the arena, the bridges, yeah. Excited about that. Yeah, definitely. So we got Reaper, we got Troller Games, we got Stratagem, and we got now Infinite Dimensions. All of them have given the same amount in compensatory gifts, dollar amounts for fundraiser. So hopefully that'll really help kick things up this year. It's exciting. I'm sorry to interrupt your discussion there.
No problem.
That was it.
Yeah. We can continue with the Elven bit when we.
What's up, Dorgrim? Dorgrim showed off his shirt and mouse pad on yeah, you really need to have a need for that 3D printer, though. I mean, we have STL files tomorrow night, and STL files next Thursday, are the next 2 giveaways. And I missed another cue here. Did I? Yeah. Okay. But we got 6 minutes still, so. I think the Elven song I did for the entrance is like 3 minutes long, so something like that. Now that I have all this music.
I have a vendor that has been on 1 day, 20 hours, and 20 minutes now, and it's gone 39%. So I hope that I don't just get power outage in the next day or something, because that would be really nice. I have to do it all over again. Things will probably be like 4 days, 5 days before it's done.
Oh, Dorgo, I just saw your post. You plan on wearing that shirt? That's awesome. I appreciate it, man. Because I'm out of them now. I'm working on the merchandising with the outside company. So if I get a deal on Vistaprint, I'll order 1 more batch of them for giveaways. It's good entrance. This is a little calm.
My familiar well-fed, so she's getting quiet down.
Surface Elves. Yeah. Gosh, I don't, Lenders, I don't get. We gotta discuss that tonight. I left it downstairs. I should have brought up Veil of the Mage. I don't get Valley Elves at all. I just don't. I don't know where they came from. I just don't get it. You know, you snap your finger and all of a sudden, oh, they're Valley Elves. You know, so we can discuss that tonight.
Let's see if I can find my
Cold. No problem, Nagoya. Thanks, man. Like I said, I got all your great stuff to give away too. What, you don't like the music, Will? Hey, Wally, good to see you, man. I haven't seen you in a bit. Oh, ha 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 ha! Let me see how long this. He said, I love the. Oh, gag me with a spoon. Oh my gosh, I don't know how that. See, I'm like kind of brain dead tonight, a little bit. I got it now. Oh my god, gag me with a spoon. What's up, Mike? Well, I try to make the music to the tone of the show. So now that I have a nice archive that I don't get banged on Twitch or YouTube for. Oh my gosh. So here we come. And the song's over. Look at that. And Jay almost hit the wrong button again. Woo! Boom. Good evening, everyone. Jay Kalur Gazumba. I got Anna Meyer and Mike Bridges with me tonight. As we talk, we tone it down. Last week, we were just all listeners, right?
Yeah, exactly. We didn't have
You
to
don't
say
have
anything.
an elf guy?
Yeah, we don't.
Yep.
Well, I mean, that was just something. I will tell you this. The main person from the movie, and I can't remember his name, contacted me after he watched the show last week and said it was fantastic and he has some other tidbits and he'd like to come on in the future. And I said, okay.
Ooh.
So
Awesome.
we're going to have a follow-up to that show from from last week. So it was really, really cool.
Nice.
And, let me see. You guys really hit me over the head here. I got to get caught up on some things here. On follows and all. All right, let's do quick while I'm doing this. Some quickie announcements. Some good stuff. So we crossed 100,000 channel views on Sunday night. So
Wow.
yeah, and that's over the entirety of the 2.5-3 years. So that was awesome. Thank you all for that. I don't know what that means, but it's kind of cool, and numbers just keep on going and going up and up. And as far as totals, and thank you. And note that if it happens, you may, depending on what time we finish tonight, you may see some people pop onto Zoom at the last second. So I got a big meeting with Luke Gygax after the show. All right.
So we have a hard in time.
Okay,
Good.
so yeah. Yep.
So I got a meeting with Luke and Jimmy Duffy and Casey Matt Everhart for Gary Kahn, just to get some things ironed out and worked out. And,
Wow, that's around the corner.
Well, it's a month and a half. Before that, we all got to start getting in the mindset for, and we're gonna do a show on this on Gab and a full show, but we need to get into. I can't just throw things in the scroller anymore now it's switched on me. It's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
I used to be able to do that, but here, I'll throw this up. We got to get in the Underdark Uprising mode, right? I'll put it over my face. So 9 streams, 8 channels, benefiting St. Jude, and 4 major sponsors: Reaper Miniatures, Trollord Games, Stratagem, and Infinite Dimensions have all stepped up, plus Casey, plus Cannibal, Eridar, plus Canadian Ancient Gamer have all stepped up with great giveaways. Man, we got a lot of stuff complimentary for all the donators. I'm excited, really excited about that. So we got a lot going on. What's up there, Jason? Did you like that? Jacobson with an E. I'm wondering, who is that, Jason? Is that a relative or who? I'm assuming it was someone you know, because it's your same name, isn't it? Or you with an are you O-N? I always get confused. So, so elves tonight.
Yep.
We did an elf show about. I looked on Gabbin about a year ago, and this is going to take a little bit of a different spin, than that one. This one's going to be more with, a little more history and stuff. So, like, why don't we start like at the beginning, when the Invoke Devastation came and the migrations really started? Like elves, where are the elves at that point? That's probably a good start.
It's a very good question.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where were the elves?
Where were the elves? I mean, where were the kingdoms? Like, were the elves in Keeland at that time, or did the Elven Kingdom from Selene stretch all the way up through to the Yatils? I mean, because you supposedly had all those fortresses.
Seems to have, like most things in the Flanny, seems to have started up in mountain cities. Seems to be some of the earliest things in that is mentioned in the history of elves. And then there's various versions of it. Eric Mona wrote a story on a primer on elves too, so that is kind of a little bit different too, I guess. But
Didn't recall that.
Yeah, so I don't know where it was published. I just had it laying around as a PDF, and
Four Kingdoms. Gary says Four Kingdoms.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so like the one that I'm familiar with, you can find in Ivid the Undying, City of Summer Stars, and yeah, that fell before the migration.
Yeah, and Gary goes, not sure where the City of Summer Stars fell when, but it seems like pre-Twin Cataclysm.
If I had to take a guess, I'm going to punt on this. If someone asked me in-game, I would say the elves at the migrations are as they are now. They're in the same state.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I got from David Leonard that they were ousted from the Crystal Mist in 4666 BC.
See, that's before migrations too.
Yeah, meaning So the elves were in turmoil, and things happened long before modern times.
While we're talking about history, I guess then I'm curious. Maybe someone in the chat knows. Why is the Olven date 1,000 years slower or behind the Sewell date?
Mm-hmm.
The Sewell is older than the Olven.
I have a theory on that I've used in my campaign. This is not canon, but the way I interpret it is that the way I have it is that biology kind of starts. The fanciful things from the outer planes and the Feywild and all that came afterwards, because that's a product of creatures' imaginations and feelings and all that. So elves are so humans and others are actually older than elves as beings, so to speak. They've been around because they evolved more biologically. Elves and others, my elves come from the Fey, so to speak. So they are kind of a version. So they came in later. And humans have been along probably for millions of years or whatever, like much longer than elves have. So that's why the time period is shorter than for Elven reckoning, because that was one of the little twerks that I've realized that, damn, it works. If I do this, then it works. So that's my explanation in my campaign. That's why the Sulwas were the first one to and then the Flan and others, they were kind of, they are older as civilizations. They're really, really old. The elves are old per generation, but as civilization, they're probably not that old, so to speak.
Gary says, Eric Mona and I set the starting of the Elven calendar as the date on which the Four Kingdoms were founded after the Elven migration from elsewhere. Good point.
There you have it. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Yep.
That's cool.
And that's the interesting thing, where elsewhere, what that means.
So then I'm correct. At the start of the migrations, the state of Elvendom is as it is at the start of 576.
Okay.
probably a little bit better, isn't it? Wasn't it? At least there was an odd. You did an
I'm sure they
awesome map
shrunk a
and wrote.
little.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that was all.
yeah,
That's all Flan era.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing, we have the western part, so to speak, where you have the from the Vespy down to the Selene, and then we have the eastern part where we have the Adri and Sundi area, so to speak. And I see these as the two major parts of Elvendom in the early parts. And then Great Kingdom come in and kind of at least split the parts. There were probably elves surviving in the Gamboj, the Adri, the Grandwood, and Sundi, but they became small separate entities with the
Because the elves would have been futzing with flame kingdoms for thousands of years
yeah, but
before any
yeah,
Orids or Syl came along.
Right.
but
It-
they
Yeah.
were on top of the Flan in a way. They weren't with the Aridians and the Sulwas came in, because the Flan, they taught the Flan magic and stuff like that. And according to several sources, I don't know exactly how much published they are, but then it was actually Vecna learned and the Flan, they learned magic from from the elves originally, so to speak, and that's what they kind of got it, and that was part of the rise of the first Flan kingdoms.
So, which is the one that the middle of the Great Kingdom split? Is that the Adri and the Grandwood? They were one.
Yeah, you have the
Okay.
Adri and the Greenwood, and they were
Aren't they
probably
pretty
one.
far apart though?
No, they're not that far apart. They're
No?
like 50 miles, 50,
I
60
think it's
miles.
more than
And
that. isn't it?
they were probably. Hang on
Map
a second.
time.
Yeah, map time.
Whoops,
Yeah.
wrong button time. So,
Yeah.
there we go.
They're not that far, and to be honest, I think they were originally two forests, and
Yeah.
a lot of the actual difference is that someone probably cut down the trees in between for building and stuff. So that might very well have been, and for agriculture. So yeah, so it's probably about. Just get my computer up and
Thank you, Alderon, for such a great show last week. That was so awesome. Oh man, this image slideshow thing is driving me insane.
It's about 80 miles. Yeah. And
now I got to move stuff.
Yeah, and then I don't think that they're like it ends with a hard forest line, so there's probably like.
All right, there. Okay,
Yeah.
so there's the Audrey
Yeah.
and the Grandwood. All right,
Yeah.
so we can go back to that too. And there's the
Yeah.
Thelwood there, and there's Rel Devon. So we
Yeah.
have some talk.
And then and so we have and I have it that the western part from Vespy connects all the way through Viluna down to Selene, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that's why one of the reasons Viluna was kind of a separate entity, because they had like a secret agreement with the elves. That's why they had a.
Voluna does have a lot of
Canadian,
elves.
why are
Yeah.
elves associated with woodlands? I think, well, you got to remember, that's just a Tolkien-esque thing. I mean, because they had these mountainous forts, and there's still one there, right, Anna? Up in the, is it the Attills, or where is that one?
Oh,
fortress?
Oh yeah, you have the Kershani. But that's something from the Living Greyhawk era.
Oh, okay.
They put
Okay.
in. Yeah, they put
Okay.
in. Yeah,
Tiny
they
vales.
fleshed out more to the elves of the Vespy.
Tolkien wood elves are only a minority true lenders, but they're all living for the most part in forests.
Yeah, most of Tolkien's elves seems to be kind of forest kin to some degree, and it seems to be that way in Greyhawk too. And since
First Age elves were living in mountains. They're living on the coast.
yeah,
They were.
and then they kind
all
of
over.
retreated to the forest or something. So, but
It's
now-
more. Lord of the Rings era. That's all that's left is Mirkwood and Fangorn Forest and stuff like that.
So first,
oh, go on.
My time frames are all messed up. You guys know I'm not a time historian. The fighting with Vecna and the Sheldamar, is that pre or post migrations?
Pre, but much closer than any other Elven history that we know.
Okay. Pre, thank you, Will, too.
The Vecna Empire.
Gary says both.
Well,
Both.
yeah, in a way, but I think that Vecna was established his empire before the migration.
All right, some
came,
spills
so to speak.
over after, he says. All right, so
Yeah.
We need to come on, Gary. You can.
Yeah.
You have to
Gary
come in here and
Gary-
correct us when we screw up here. So yeah.
So you got, if we go to that era, okay, we just instead of going ancient, we go you have the Selene, Duchy of
I'm going to
Ulick,
get my
Elven area,
timestamp.
Yeah.
right, fighting Vecna. High Folk Vespy, right, and I'm assuming anything into the Atolls and all is part of that same kingdom, right? All those fortresses up there. All right, that's 2. And then what's the northern one that I don't know what the northern one is.
Vespy Forest.
Is that Felreeve? Pupik. Okay, Felreeve Forest, and then you have the Adri Gambage area as the 4th. They're the 4.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I have it that Vecna's, and this is extract from Worth Journal and David Leonard's awesome articles, blog post, and that it says that Vecna's empire is at its peak at minus 1566. And then we have the beginning of the Bakluni Shulwas wars are minus 380 in the 380s, and Iridian migrations east, they peak in the 350s, minus 350 OBCY. So yeah.
Okay.
And then comes the Sulwas. So in that case, Vecna is like 1,000 years before the migrations.
Okay. News.
Yeah.
Educated me, but according to Gary, he says it's still went on after.
And since Vecna became undead and all that, so he kind of lingers on. But the first wave when Vecna was actually a living person and became an arch wizard and kind of started racing, that is long before the migrations. But then I guess his presence lingered and and he's still there to this day in some respects.
So yeah, if there's an elven decline, whatever the time frame, it has to do with the Earthland.
Yeah, but there's the interesting thing is that the Vecna Empire and Vecna Born is in the Sheldamar Valley, just next door to Selene. So the elves and Vecna must have clashed early on, so to speak, and because it's like next door to Axewood and Silverwood and all these areas that are Elven and were probably the center of the Elven domain, the Uliks of today, so to speak, and Selene are just next door to where Vecna had his spidered throne. And,
on the other side, that's to the west of Selene. On the other side of Selene, you have all the flank kingdoms that are around the near Div.
Yeah, exactly.
Who are just as wicked and messed up as Vecna.
Yeah.
Soln and Elves of Woe.
But they were probably not that sophisticated magic-wise and stuff to compare with the elves.
I know the Isles of Woe probably was.
Okay, yeah.
At least before they got crushed with the Codex.
So
Infinite Planes.
You have your Elven kingdoms. What are the races of them? Now, this is where the Grey Elf, High Elf, Sylvan Elf, Valley Elf, Wild Elf thing.
Yeah.
Like
that depends on how you look at the races of the elves, so to speak.
Yeah. Are humans or other races equally as old as elves? Yeah, no. Ranger Harley, the Sulwee's calendar goes before the Elven calendar. So the answer is
that's an oddity.
In Greyhawk, yes.
There's
go on.
I don't know if any of you have the complete book of elves from 2nd edition.
You mean this?
Yes.
Ta-da!
Yeah, mine's at work. Anyhow, there's an interesting bit in there where it covers elves for all the game settings, and it explains
page 26
that the elves of the world of Greyhawk, they claim to be the original elves because those elves are standard, rules set elves. So they assume, this is the elven homeworld, but then they go into the argument where no, them elves probably came from somewhere else too. Like they're not the original elves either. It's really interesting.
It says the elves of Earth tend to be purer informed than the elves of many other worlds. Their ideals and their goals are often closer to AD&D standard than those of other worlds in almost every regard. They're the average elf, save for the Grugok and Valley elves. So they're calling them Tolkien-esque elves here, basically.
Yeah. And so those two subsets is what sets Greyhawk apart, not the Grey and the High and the Wood elves.
Yeah.
Cool. Armin, I got you there if you don't already have. I thought you already had My gosh, I
Top
can't
those,
keep.
and
maybe.
Grugach, or yeah,
Yeah,
they
well,
different.
Grugach Grugach appear in from
Agree.
Monster Manual 2, right? Grugach, no, they appear in Shokanth, right,
Yeah.
Carlos? Grugach appear in Shokanth. That's where I first saw them,
Okay,
in
but they
that
are
addendum book, and
listed
then they
in
put them in Monster Manual 2.
hmm yeah.
So yeah, I'm almost positive that's where they Grugach. Yep. So I mean,
And Penguin's right. There's nothing physically different about them. I don't think it's
That's
cultural.
Yeah, exactly. That cold steel paint. I totally. That's a perfect point. So and I agree. The way I see it is that they're all physically the same, except for dark elves that are different, and there are some dissimilarities or like differences between some of them. But high elves and so on. I have it that the Sylvan and the Grugach and some of the more cool wild elves. That's cultural difference. Those are the ones that kind of
Yeah, in that
yeah.
complete book of elves, they
Mhm.
explain that the Grugach are just wild elves who will kill you on sight instead of run
Yeah.
you off.
Yeah. It's a matter of lifestyle more than biology or any of that difference. Yeah. And how do you guys see the difference between high elves and gray elves?
that's a good one. And
Yeah.
let me take
Well,
that one
Because
up.
those are the two
go
main
for
ones,
it.
so to
Let me
speak. Yeah.
take that one
Us,
up because this is a
hmm
bone of
yeah,
contention on what is in
ooh,
Selene, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
So all the time, it specifically states in the original Monster Manual or Player's Handbook the difference between high and gray elves, and gray elves are quote unquote fairies, right? That's their sub. That's what they're called.
Right.
They're nobler. They also get a bonus point
Mm,
of intelligence over a regular high elf in first edition stats when you generate them. They don't get they get the +1 to Dex, -1 to combat. They also get a point of intelligence added. They have gold, usually have the golden or metallic hair, and they usually have a violet or emerald or deep
uh,
blue eyes. So, and when I first looked at the book in the glossography, the only place I could find them was Selene, and maybe a little bit in the High Folk, small amount. Am I correct on this, everyone? That's where they saw them. Yeah, I'm a Grey Elf guy, so most of the Selenian, and the way I have it is this in my Selene, the 10 noble houses of Selene are all Grey Elves houses.
right.
Some of the lesser houses are Grey Elf and High Elves. So there are High Elves in Selene, but none of them, like Yolan, Lady Ralta, is a Grey Elf, 100%.
Yeah.
You know, and all my half elves, Gazumba, Hawk, all the characters you know in my campaign, they're all half elves usually of Grey Elven descent. That's just the way, just because of that this glossography posting, that's where
Yeah.
I couldn't find them anywhere else, right? So
Right.
whatever.
Selene is like majority gray elf. You got some Sylvan
Duchy's High
in
Elf,
the fridges, right?
yeah,
And that's where the duchies.
but you know,
And really, isn't there some kind of elven hierarchy thing going on here? So you got a queen in Selene,
yeah,
you got a duke in Ulick,
yeah.
and the only other one I could think of. Oh wait, no, there's a count in Sundee,
hmm
and then there's the Lord of the High Elves
That
in
used to be a
Highfolk.
king in Sunday, I think. That because they used to be a
Yeah.
kingdom, and then they became a province of Great Kingdom, and
I
now
just
I
thought
think
that kind of curious, because you got
yeah,
different elven branches, but on the hierarchy of noble titles,
yeah.
at least in the original book, there was like one of each.
Yeah, but Yolandi of Selene is she's the
Selene.
queen of all elvendoms.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to title, at least she has the most aspiring title. But when
She's
it comes to Grey and
Asendel.
Sylvan and Grey and High Elves, the way I've dealt with it is that it's simply a matter of age. Elves start out being Sylvan or high or whatever, but that's a cultural difference. Meaning elves are like normal elves when they're born and they live for some hundreds of years, and then when they get old and they get the calling, so to speak, then that's when they have to make a decision if they are good enough or like want to become so quote unquote true elves, so to speak, and embrace their fey ancestry. Then
Hmm.
they become gray elves and
Huh.
they become that way, so to speak, and then
Faye.
they transcend into to become gray elves.
Interesting.
And if they're evil or don't, because that's something that the Selder in Pantheon, the gods from it, give them that right, so to speak, to be and if they skip that, and like example Keek, that in the service of I use and become evil, he will not get that chance. So he will stay high elf and live on that way without becoming gray and move into more of the Fae, so to speak.
Okay.
And so that's the way I've dealt with it instead.
I think, well, okay. I think it's racial right off the bat, and we can agree to disagree because Sylvan Elves, Greyhawk, are much smaller. They're short, right?
Oh yeah. There
Stronger.
are some differences too. Yes,
Right,
I was
okay.
going to say some of them are some of them are different. Just like
It's got to be a necessity thing.
Oh yeah,
Gray
and
elves are
also
used to comfort and education.
Yeah.
The other wood elves are living in the forest, roughing it.
Yeah, and there are some other differences too with meaning drows are different because they're also not part of this. They abandoned elvendom long time ago to go their own way, so to speak. And then I haven't decided what I want to do with the valley elves, but I want to make them special that way too, that they have also abandoned regular elvendom for
They
something
have.
else. Yeah, exactly.
That's the whole story behind valley elves, is that they turned away from elvendom, and they are hated as much, if not more, than the drow.
Yeah. So yeah, meaning, and then you can have all sorts of
They are gray elves.
Yeah, and that have abandoned at later on or something like that, and turned them different. And Grugach, I have them as kind of embraced a different path, and they are more Fae from birth or something like that. So I haven't decided, but something different that way. But then I have the Sylvan and the High are the standard elves when they're young, so to speak, and go out adventuring and whatnot, and then they can turn into to silver or like to fairy or gray elves when they become older and mature, so to speak.
Okay. So
Grugach and Wild Elf is the same thing.
What's that?
Wild Elf and Grugach are the same thing.
So yeah, so yes.
Yeah, they're different names and so on. I haven't decided all the from my end what I will would the different ones need to be, so or I want them to be. So yeah.
Gary.
I don't. Yeah. I don't know who was. I still don't understand it. And the whole Veil the Mage thing, I don't get it. I just don't.
I like it as a thing, as a tool. You can make something with it, so to speak. And I have this one, and I've read it through, and I don't like. I like the title image here on the cover image is great, but the apart from the mountains are way too puny in the distance. This is a plain. This is not a valley in a mountain range. This is a plain with some hills in the background. But the figures are cool. I don't like the story is. There's not much story.
There's no story. A bunch of necromancers are roaming through the valley, and you got to go catch them.
Exactly.
You never see the Jaren Crimea. You never see him. It's just like, what is this?
Yeah, meaning I want some mystery. I want something going on that is
well,
kind
if you
of
ignore that,
modern English is great. There,
if you're just opening the box set for the first time, you're reading about the Valley of the Mage. It's cool.
Yeah.
And Valley Elves.
Yep.
And
that's
I think
true.
part of the thing is elves consider Valley Elves traitors to their kind.
Yeah.
On top, so now they sold out to a human wizard. If it's known that he's the Mage of the Veil is a human wizard, so they're working for a human, and a human wizard whose second in command is a drow. So it's like ultimate heel turn. Why would they do that?
Yeah.
What's in it for them?
Yeah, and then when you read the Gord books, all of a sudden you have the demiurge, the cat lord, coming in and residing in there, if I remember correctly, and that is kind of turned it all weird, even in a completely different way. And it was like, nah. So I'm kind of that.
So if it's a human wizard, as written, I think in Greyhawk Adventures, the Valley Elves turning to him would have been a recent event. But if they're working for the demiurge, they could have been working for
forever.
Mage of the Veil for forever.
He's like the cat lord or something. So he's like a deity. Yeah.
Maybe the Valley Elves are the only ones who didn't run away from the Crystal Mists. If you think about it, if
Yep.
they supposedly started from the Crystal Mist / Barrier Peaks range,
Well, it kind of
they're the
goes on.
ones still
Barrier
there.
Peaks is just the extension north from,
I-
so it's
so
the same
if all-
mountain range.
I always thought that the Veil of the Mage was isolated, and it was like evolution took it. It was like Australia stuff. I don't know. I mean, I can't
I
explain
don't
it.
know either.
Yeah, I take it's. I
That
think
book
something with
has
their allegiance, so to speak. They a few thousand years ago, they or 10 or whatever, they split their allegiance, abandoned the Elven Pantheon and Elven culture, and struck out and did something on themselves, so to speak.
I don't use
Yeah,
it,
that's
so I
how
don't need to
that
worry
happened.
about it.
Yeah.
It just is there. You know, it's one of those things. I'm like, ah.
Oh yeah,
You
but
know.
it's one of these things. I haven't dared to touch it, and
Oh, my God.
and I want to one day. I
Archie,
want
that's a
to,
big
and I want to. Yeah, you need to make something cool of it. So yeah, and they need to be cool. Yeah, and it's tough, so to speak. But elves, I think elves thematically are so cool that I know a lot of people don't like it, and Talisalanta always had that. No elves were their selling
Yeah.
point, so to speak. And I always liked elves so much, but you need to kind of make them special a little bit more. In Greyhawk, they're not. All the demi-humans are just treated as some sort of sideshow in the books. They're not integrated much either in politics or how the setting works or any of that stuff. It's human centric, and you can definitely play Greyhawk that way. And in a lot of ways, if you just read the original books and settings, then that's the way it is. That it's the humans and their political struggles and religious feuds and all that that is the center of the setting. Yeah.
All right, so a couple things. So Gary says I'm mostly right, which is yes, thank you. About
Yeah.
what I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
so Archie asked a question about starting in Greyhawk, and I have multiple vids on that. I'm not saying go there now, but
we've
we
talked
always
about
help
it
you out
several
how to
times.
start up a campaign, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
posts and there's a lot of here.
Yeah.
If you're not on there. If you're not on that, hop into that Discord. Someone's going to help you.
You do not start your campaign by deep diving into elves.
No, that's
probably
true.
not the easiest way to do it. No.
You can also start with just with Keep on the Borderland. It's place Kendall Keep and Yeomanry. There's play. So Gary has agreed. I'm going to foreshadow because Gary agreed. In February, Gary's going to come on, and we're gonna do placements in that are official now in Greyhawk before. So he's gonna all talk about X1, Isle of Dread. He's gonna come on and we're gonna go deep dive into the Isle of Dread and all the other ones. So we're gonna do that, but that'll be in February on Legends and Lore, everyone. So that'll be a good one. But all right, I had another point, and my brain just turned completely off. It's one of those nights, everyone. I got.
Gary says that Valley Elves probably have ejected the Solderen. That's probably why the only crime they could put in par with the draw. Yeah, they might be atheistic, right? I don't know if someone already mentioned that.
That's it.
Yep.
All right, that was the question. Canadian, no, there is one deity that's a Sylvan Elf deity that I know of, and that's it. And then there's all the rest are High Elven deities, and then there's Dark Drow deities. All that we know, a lot of them were developed by, people who have been on the show last week and on this week. So Ed Greenwood and Eric Boy did a lot of work on that, as we found out on Sunday. But Rolithane Ralafil, the tree, he's basically a big tree, is the god of the Sylvan Elves, right? And I'm assuming the Wild and Grugak too. Because I don't know of a Wild or Grugak deity. They may be worship Druidic deities. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I actually have a lot scrolling through here, and there's some from another Dragon magazine that I used that are in addition to the Best of the Dragon Volume 3 or Dragon 60 deities that all came in there. There's Labralus, Erinurth, the Elven God of Longevity, the Roger Moore article. So if you have a Best of the Dragon Volume 3 around, which we're getting close to me giving this puppy out on 4,000 followers. We're getting there. What are we at? 36, 36. We're getting close.
Yep.
So, Gods of the Elves. Page 13. Right? Gods of the Elves.
Yep.
There you go. So, Canon Corell and Lorethian. Main deity. Deities and demigods. That's where Corellin is. VOD3 is very
I
useful.
don't know, Penguin. I think the Valley Elves aren't short.
No, Valley Elves are 6 feet
Their whole
tall.
deal is that they can
They're tall. They're
pose
6
as
feet.
humans.
They're as tall as
They're
humans.
they're like master spies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Valley Elves are the tallest of all the Elven races. Tall.
Mhm.
Grugok
Yep.
are the shortest.
Mhm.
Valley Elves are tall. If you remember, Tolkien Elves are 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
Now, what I do like about the gnome Valley Elf symbiotic relationship is that gnomes have an affinity for illusions, and then you have the Valley Elf spies. It's a great synergy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff we don't know about, and we're all conjecturing.
But I mean, it's interesting to make the Valley Elves an elven cult. That is not deity based, so to speak. It's not, but it's like they are a cult that kind of that separated themselves.
No.
In so many ways from normal elvendom and taken up. Yeah, and then they have
Lendris, where do you see? I'd love to know that reference. He says that Valley Elves worship Alana. I have never seen that. If you have, I'd love to know that reference. Because Alana.
The only thing that makes me wonder, Jay, is because Alana can appear as both a human or an elf.
So I have Alana as a deity that elves do worship in Selene and the Welkwood and the Gnarly Forest.
Before we had a full elven Pantheon.
Yeah, I have it. That's one. Yeah, the way I see it is that Alana was originally an elven deity, or maybe just an elf that was elevated into being a deity, and then the Flan started worshiping her too. And then she became an old faith goddess
just
as well.
Crossovers.
Yeah, and that way that she has
like a is she, a dwarf, a gnome?
Yeah.
I don't know.
All of them.
Yeah. So I see it culturally. That's something that the Flan borrowed from the Elven culture, so to speak.
According to him,
vice versa, even.
Yeah. According to Lendra's in the Veil of the Mage, it's mentioned and in there that they are Alana worshippers, which is really interesting.
That kind of
Grugok live in the. I'm going to show you a picture of that if I can find it. All right, here we go. This is where Grugok live. Grugok and a lot of Sylvan Elves. One of my favorite places. I hit the wrong. So you got to remember, I changed all my numbers around. I hit the wrong freaking button again. It used to be 11. So give me a little patience here on my changings of the numbers. But in the wonderful Vespy Forest. Now, in this, I couldn't fit the whole forest on the map. It's so huge. If you see north of the Beastman Forest, that's the Sylvan Elf lands to the north. Sylvan Elves, gnomes up there as it goes hilly. The Elven Realm of the Timeless Tree, that's Grey Elves. Okay, but that is not discussed as Grey Elves until From the Ashes. There are no Grey Elves.
Carl Sargent detailed the Vespy way more than previously was kind of.
There are, if you look,
but isn't that just like the Labilis Inarith Timeless Tree? It's like a religious region, right?
Exactly. Yeah, but
it might be. Yeah,
it is. It is.
You can have it as one of the places where you go.
There's like only like 500 Grey Elves there. Then the Valley of the High Folk is where all the High Elves are, which is to the west of this, and that is just to give you an idea of where you are in this wonderful, huge, mega area of. If you want to Grugok, or in the far north here, Sylvan Elves are all throughout, but Grugok are remote, isolated elves. So
and now Gary mentioned the other interesting snow elves.
Snow elves, yeah, they're like the snow barbarians. They're an offshoot of the elves, and they worship Vatun.
Yeah. Are they present in the Flanies?
When did that happen? I don't even know it.
I know.
When did that happen?
No,
it's in the Dragon magazine.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah.
That's the only mention of them I'm aware of.
Yeah, Gary's kind of.
I was like, what?
He's putting in tripwires here in the discussion, and we get
Snow elves.
But also, I think it was called Sargent that coined the heartlands in the Vespy, the center of the Vespy of Elvendom in the Vespy. So I kind of picked up on that and went from there, so to speak, and ran wild with it.
Yeah, there's a lot to run wild with on elves all over the place, in manner of speaking, because early on, the humanoids kind of aren't put in detail. They're not. They're not putting the detail like the
Yeah.
Sullies, Black Lunish Flan. You know,
The
it's
humans
just
are detailed, and the
yes,
rest is kind of just on the fringes. It's there to have fun and to add flavor and
yeah,
stuff, but it's not central
absolutely.
to the setting. Yeah.
So as we think about
Gyarados.
the elves, and you have all the different races, and you know, Anna says they change. Okay, so
Well,
whatever
yeah. Hmm.
that discussion is, um, what about the? All right, so there's 4 kingdoms still to this day. Is that what we're agreeing on? Kind of, or main locations?
It
Eh,
depends on how much you divide them up. You have the western part and the Vespy. You can say that the Vespy region is one with several entities, and then you have the Selene Ulick area, and then you have the Sundi up, and then you have isolated areas up in the former Great Kingdom too.
It's tricky. The
Yeah.
I know in the box set, the High Vale Vespy area is supposed to have no established ruler. You know, there's a Lord of the High Elves, there's gnomish princes, it says, and so forth.
right.
But no, you know, it's like a council.
There's like a Lord Mayor of Highfolk, but he's
Yeah.
human, isn't he?
Yeah.
So whoever used to rule that area, now that Marklands might have changed that. I don't know,
Yeah.
Carl Sargent.
But
But I always took it as a independent.
yeah, I took it as simply that was an offshoot, that was a compromise between the Great Kingdom and the Elves, because the Great Kingdom so they created that as a sort of a hybrid state. So the Great Kingdom can go on and conquer Perilland and use that as a staging area, and it was still under partially Elven rule, so to speak. So that's why the High Folk separates out from the Heartlands, because originally I saw it as one realm. The whole of that Vespy area was Elven, and then the Great Kingdom came, and they were powerful enough, but they didn't want to go into the whole forest, so they made a sort of a compromise, and that's how the High Folk was. That's why High Folk is kind of a hybrid, not a true kingdom. It's not even it's kind of some sort of mishmash, politically, racial, and all that, so to speak. It's caught up between Elven and Great Kingdom policies, so to speak. And when I read the description, I got that sense. So that's why I always played the High Folk that way. And it's one of these areas where half elves are common too, because it's an area that both humans and elves have both lived in and used.
How long
Yeah.
have the elves been on the Spindrift Isles?
That's the other interesting thing I was just going to say. Then we have the Spindrift
Oh boy.
kind of debacle, or however you say. It's kind of interesting. And yeah, and then you have the Spindrift conundrum itself, because you have Lendor Isles. Is that part of the Spindrifts or not? In some writing,
Yeah, I'd
it
say.
seems to be part of it. In some writing, Lendor Isles is completely separate from the
So like
Spindrift.
Lendor Isles is where the humans live, but the Spindrifts is the chain, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but it depends on, because when you talk about the Spindrift, it seems to be the whole thing in a lot of descriptions. But I think that's simply editorial. They wanted to save some space, so they shoved together things that are out on the fringes, and they didn't pay too much attention to it. But when we have Len that have detailed Lendor Isle a lot, so far, and there comes a report on that later, but I've scanned now 300 something pages, and I haven't seen anything about the Spindrifts at all. And
so Gary,
it wasn't Len's, the whole Spindrifts. It was,
exactly.
You know, so
he concentrated on the Lendor Isles and treated that as a separate entity.
I can't find the Felreave in this book.
So yeah. So I think we're kind of victim to a little bit of neglect, and meaning Len paid a lot of attention to Lendor Isles, but the rest of the group or islands out there basically have no information whatsoever.
So if you look through the original glossography, and that tends to be my reference, there are like the Gambage has a lot of Sylvan Elves.
Yep.
The Felreave has just a few Sylvan Elves, not a lot of other elves in it. It seems that
that was the Living Greyhawk campaign introduced some more. And Carl Sargent added some, the green leaf, or hang on a second here.
The Grandwood is all Sylvan Elves as well. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
uh,
Both the Aldri and the Granwood have some elves in it, and the Gamboge too. So and Celadon as well have some
well,
pretty
my
fun.
my thought on this is yeah, okay. Sylvan Elves and Treants in the Celadon. So my thought on this is that the forests tend to be undeveloped, right? You know, natural terrain, and the Sylvan Elves and Greyhawk are the ones that are reclusive and are deep in the forests. While the High Elves and Grey
Yeah,
Elves are in structured political settings. I mean, that's just the way it looks here. Is that
yeah.
you
But
know?
I think we have one of these a phenomenon that I don't have a name for, but that everywhere seems to be like mini settings when you start, and especially the living Greyhawk kind of seem to have suffered from this phenomena. If it's an asset or a bad thing, I leave that to each DM to figure out. But what I mean is that each region wanted to have everything. They wanted to have all the flavors, meaning you have to have a little bit of
Yeah.
elves, a few orcs, some halflings, gnomes, and everything needed to be in every region. That meant that every forest, there's even mention in the Living Greyhawk adventure in Shieldlands that there's a forest invented out there on the plain somewhere, and you put in some sylvans or whatever, just so the
Yeah.
elven characters could have a home.
Yeah.
And I don't like that bit at all. I don't
No.
want to have multiculti is good politically, but there is a upper limit. It's way past that in fantasy politics on my account, so to speak. I want the different parts of the Flannies to be different. I don't want elves everywhere and humans
That's a shame
everywhere. So
because the
yeah,
glossography has charts to roll in to see where your character comes from.
yeah,
That was
Yep.
built in.
hmm
The
yeah,
Gygax already knew
yeah.
the demographics.
Yeah. But a lot of fantasy worlds tend to be that way. When they become big enough, you just need to, because characters of all sorts need to be able to come have a home everywhere and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And to me, that is a detriment to some degree. But that's just my opinion. There's probably a
Well,
lot of good arguments why elven characters should be able to be played all over the setting, etc. And
ideally,
most,
each of those living Greyhawk regions had a major city, and then you wouldn't have to just hand wave
yeah.
that you're from the city.
And now
Huh.
Pubic Dad has some cookie elves.
All right, so
Now,
there are
yeah.
Keebler elves in Dragon Magazine, and they're evil, and they hoard all these special secrets. I'm positive it was one of those midgets in the earth articles. I don't know if Roger Moore did it or whatever, like he did the Jolly Green
Uh-oh.
Giant and stuff.
Oh, so you
Um,
mean like
yeah, it was a joke, but I
okay,
know there's
yeah.
a Keebler elves article in Dragon. I know I
Uh-oh.
saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, do they play hockey? It's fun.
hmm
So you have High Elves and Emperorville and Western or High Elves who used to live on
Whew.
mountains and Wood Elves on the plains. The High Elves moved after the demons tried to kill the Wood
Yeah.
Elves.
Yeah.
I'm glad you
But
chimed in on that because I know nothing about Western Orc.
no, and but the interesting with elves is that they
I don't
seem
either.
to be thematically, meaning you have snow elves, wood elves, high elves, pretending like mountains and stuff. And to me, that's a little bit too simplistic, so to speak. That is something that humans call them that because they live up in the cold and they live in the mountains and they live in the forest. But I want the elves to be a bit more sophisticated,
Ah.
varied, and stuff among themselves, so to speak.
Do they play hockey?
Yeah, well,
Geek
there's no
stuff.
elves. I'm sure they do.
Funny.
All right, Mac. I have invited him multiple times, and his publishing company has not gotten back to me ever. So I have invited Chris Promise on multiple times.
Okay.
It's like Bruce. It was like Bruce Cordell. It took me how long to get Bruce on? Over a year. It's probably gonna take that long.
I will so much love if Chris Promise would come.
Yeah,
here.
I've tried. I've tried for Chris, but
Yep.
he said I have a little bit of a bigger guest coming on this Sunday, right? A little bit
Yep.
bigger than Chris Promise. So we're trying. We're really having some fun with that. I'll shout that out again. So it's a late start to Sunday night, but we're
Yep.
an hour later than normal.
But now comparing to Drow, and I'm not going to go into Drow, I'm just going to make the comparison saying that Drow have seemed to have been so popular compared to the rest of the elves that the rest of the elves haven't got as much attention, love, and written. But in a way, I guess it's because they suffer from a Tolkien complex a little bit, because it's like a Tolkien invention with the elves. So whatever you do will be measured
Drow
towards. Is that
Drow are antagonists.
yeah?
If the Wood Elves were rising up and they were going to take out someone, then you would get
Yeah.
a bunch of lore.
Yeah,
on
so I mean, companion characters
Uh,
to humans and adventurers aren't as interesting as adversaries. And
Yeah.
I
opponents.
promised not to discuss Drow tonight.
Yeah.
For Eric
Yeah, I just wanted
Mengi.
to. My
Contrasting.
only reference was I wanted to go back to it,
Yeah.
but just mention and say that the rest of the
talking in chat.
Elvendom haven't gotten that much attention and love as the Drow have. So that's interesting. From meaning, how many other like novels and stories and stuff do we have that are elf centric, so to speak? In meaning, if we look at the Gord books, there's not many elves at all. There is there's a half elven, the Curly Greenleaf. He's a half elf druid, and then we have Keek, that is one of Obmi's henchmen, or like on the Boneheart, so to speak, the Bone Shadow, the what Ayusian henchman, and so and he's kind of a cool sidekick, but otherwise there's not that many great elves described and used in the adventures.
I have two evil ones.
That's cool.
Very evil ones. And one of them, everyone knows as, I'm not even going to bring the picture up, and that's Marquesa. She's been talked to death. I mean, she's a high elf. Right?
She is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hardcore, yeah. Slaver.
Oh, I thought she was human, but
no. Vilely evil. One of the most evil characters ever made in the campaign. Vile evil. I'm going to give you another one, and I think some of you old schoolers are going to like this one. I just got to go back to this, and that is Lanolin. Does anyone know where that comes from? Yes.
I heard the name, but
anyone know? Come on, some of you old schoolers should know where that comes from.
Yeah, I hope that someone will save
Lanolin. This is and you can look at it. Look this character. I got the picture here. I don't think I put him in the scroller for some reason, but this one, this GK Fleming, Lanolin. Good night. See you, Armin. Thanks, man.
That's definitely old.
Rogues Gallery.
Oh, okay.
It's one of the detailed ones in Rogues Gallery. This guy's chaotic evil. This guy's a great. It doesn't say what kind of elf he is. Yes, so look up in Rogues Gallery, chaotic evil, and it says, oh, he's evil and he's really short-tempered, but he's put up in adventuring parties because he's good to bring on. With something in Loesch. That's funny. I think I'm pronouncing it right.
Yeah, but isn't that also? Oh, sorry, I interrupted you.
Thank you, Armin. Thank you so very much, man. And thank you. Armin is going to be streaming from New Zealand on Thursday late evening, Friday late evening of Gary Con, and running his Against the Giants. And there'll be signups. So that'll start midnight Central Time. So there you go. So if you're in on that, you want to get, yes. That'll be the late night game there. So, yep. Absolutely. Looking forward to that. That'll be a blast. But so that is that is one of them. So there are evil ones.
Yeah, but there's, I think, another interesting kind of observation I do. I'm not sure if I'm right in this trend, but please correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
It seems like a lot of the iconic characters of various races are the ones that don't have the general alignment of them. Meaning that some of the elves that are known and so on, it's because they're evil, or vice versa. In Drow, it's because they're good, and normally they're supposed to be evil. And in Elvendom, it's like Gary introduced in the Gord books, he introduced Keek and evil elves, but elves are normally described to be good.
Normally,
and also the same thing with dwarves. Most of the description says they are lawful, but most of the dwarven adventures in various whatever, they are more kind of chaotic than anything. So and vice versa, the elves are described to be chaotic good primarily, and if I remember correctly, but they often, when you kind of encounter that, they seem to be very lawful in many ways, and calm and organized and stuff. So it's interesting to see that the alignment of notable individuals are not the same as the group alignment that is listed.
That's just like saying most humans are lawful neutral or neutral, or you know, adventurers are unique individuals.
Yeah, exactly, they are. Yeah.
All right, so old school looked up and yes, Lanolin was chaotic neutral, then went chaotic evil. It's Lauren Schick's character from Gary's campaign.
Huh.
Oh.
Yeah, I knew it was someone. Yeah, so CLs were invented by Steve Marsh in the OD&D supplement too. Wow, man.
Wow.
Daniel is he's
Yeah,
got
that's
it
it.
on, man. He's
Yeah.
got the
Yep.
There's all sorts of deviations, but I know this, that I've been asked, oh, why do you have good dark elves, in your campaign? You got a couple. Well, they're exceptions, right? If there's
Yeah.
3 of them or 5 of them out
Yep.
of 2,000 characters in the campaign, okay. And then it's the same thing with there's evil elves.
Of course,
we've discussed
there's
3
an evil. Oh,
purely
they are.
very vilely
Yep.
evil elves.
Yep.
I got to smack down Gary real quick.
Go for it.
He said, yes, where are the sea elves and the flatness? We're talking about surface elves.
Yes, that's true.
Oh yeah, we have to.
No sea elves.
We don't go equate.
There's a sea elf in U1. That's all you need to know.
Okay, see, there you got
And
it.
Saltmarsh, original Saltmarsh has a sea elf in
Above
it.
sea level elves.
Yes.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
sea elves are worse than normal elves. But you got it. That's just the way it is. Yeah, exactly. If you go with the stereotype now, you're going to get burned at the stake by the new world order, right? So if I go out and go, all dark elves are evil, and they all just want to slay, and I'm going to be, you know what I mean? So it's good that I have half
Don't worry
orcs.
about it. I already screwed it up
99
by stating that they have certain alignments. By
99.9% of the dark elves worship demons or
Yes,
demon
Loth
goddesses and
or whoever,
stuff.
and that's fine.
Okay.
But we're going to find out
Yeah.
on Sunday, another foreshadowing, about a new
See-
publication coming out about Illustrate Elves
Oh,
Ooh.
that's not out yet.
Yep.
All right. So I'm giving you a little hint of all the tidbits about to come on Sunday night's Gabbin', which is going to be awesome. Hopefully we win the fight there on that.
so how do you guys use elves in your campaigns? Are they just like a
I love
human with
elves.
some side flavor?
No.
Or okay.
No, I love
He's a little closer to the action.
I love
Yep.
I love my Celine. I love me some.
Mhm.
That's why I
Yep.
I have a lot of campaign stuff going on there. I think it's not a lawful place. I mean, they're chaotic good,
Yep.
but there's laws. I mean, there's rules, but it's
Yep.
a hierarchy.
Yeah.
They, when they need to band together, they band together. But there's rivalries and there's politics and there's
Yeah.
and a player character that's Elven has a long-term view on things, and it's just, you get that. It's a good versus. Elves really despise certain creatures, right? They hate evil. They hate dark elves. They hate orcs. They don't like it dwarves at all. It's just it's the way it is. And if you guys saw the I tried to show a little bit of the there's still some xenophobia even in my Celine, and I tried to show that on John's Blue Box when I co-DM'd with him his game a week ago. That they're not just going to let anyone walk into their town or whatever, and or their estate. It's just not going to be that way. And Mike, I don't know. Have you done a lot? You're kind of more human centric.
Yeah, it's weird. A bulk of my probably Elven playing experience has been in second edition, and when I was doing a lot of political war stuff, right? So you would mainly get into, is Celine going to side with so and so and stuff like that. One of my main players though had an Elven wizard character, but we did not play anything Elven cultural. He was always around humans. He lived in the city of Greyhawk. He hung around barbarians. Eventually he became, the leader of armies and the mayor of Greyhawk City, whatever struck his fancy. But we never did anything with Queen Yolande or whatever, unless it was, hey, I need an alliance with Queen Yolande to help take down the Palmars or whatever. It was very scant.
Yeah.
A lot of the cultural differences that I'll have that my players have in their elves is by the deity that they worship. Okay, so let's see if I can real quick go over the differences. You have
Yeah.
very few of mine worship Corellin because Corellin's like the staple.
Yeah.
So they like so if they are a lot of the half elves worship Hanali Selenol, which is the goddess of love and romantic, love and beauty and all that stuff, with the parent thing, human half elf, human elf, or Alana. Okay, but you usually get in my game, you get Erevan Elisir for the thieves, right? The goddess of mischief. Solanor Thalandra, the god of archery, because there's a lot, there's a lot of we have that specialty priest. We have so and then you get some other of the ones that I'm showing here that you've never seen before that are from this Dragon magazine article. And I have that here. Let me see if I can tell you what dragon these elves are. And we have Aerolithe of Ferenol, who's from this one, and he's the Drow hunter, elven god, who hates Drow and goes out and and that's one of them. And then there's Kira Sothol, which is a god of magic. Because Sehanine did not. That's another one. Sehanine. That one came out of nowhere in Carl Sargent era too.
Yeah, exactly. He popped
the
in.
Moonbow.
This that. Yeah.
I didn't get that either because I thought that was a Forgotten Realms deity.
No, I think it was part of.
Not sure.
Yeah, it became part of the Greyhawk Pantheon, so to speak.
But it is what became the
Hey, Tim.
Elven Lendorian elves. That's what they were
okay.
built around, right?
Yes.
I haven't gotten that far into Lendor
After-
Isles yet, so yeah.
In the post Leonard era, like Lendor Isle was the Grey Havens of Greyhawk. All of a sudden, all the elves are going to go there, right at the end. And I was like, what happened to Bone Hill? You know what I'm saying? I'm like,
Yeah, I toned that down, so to speak. I
Yeah,
don't think that
I
they go
ignored it.
somewhere automatically. They become more Fey oriented, so they literally fade into the Fey realm and get more and more into that. But they rule for a long time. But the way I have it is that elves
There you
are
go.
Pantheon worshippers. Oh yeah.
Elfin Gods. This is from March of 1990. Okay.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
Elfin
I have
Gods.
the elves. Part of the chaotic nature. They're more like old faithers, meaning they in Elven, they pray to the hunting goddess or god when they want to do that, and then they put general protection. Is Corellon. That's like the protector of our whole kind, so to speak. And then you have different. If you want to have a romantic, then you go out and pray to the god of love and so on. So they have gods for different purposes, and so Elven clerics or priests, they are not cleric of one specific deity, they are cleric of the Elven Pantheon, and they will invoke the whatever services from various deities depending on what the topic is. An Elven wizard would go to the Elven god of magic and in order to make sure that they get the arcane connection right and stuff, and so that's how I usually deal with elves and gods. They are like druids or like the old faithers that have several. They are pantheon worshippers, not individual gods. But there are of course exceptions. But that's my general when I use them.
Okay.
Hmm.
I just always saw an opportunity back in the day for, and maybe I was a spirit of Tolkien-esque, the last alliance of men and elves, and I said that why can't that continue onward? And it kind of continues in my game with the Order of Ulick and the Sleen. So.
Yeah, and you also developed elven houses and stuff that I think is really interesting. So I'm going to incorporate some of your ideas into, because I really, you've done some awesome work there, so to speak, and because I would play it so that these family bonds and houses will be much stronger than normal. They don't have a feudal system like humans and stuff. They're chaotic, so it's these kind of family bonds and stuff like that. It's more of the and I also want to play elves as perfectionists, meaning they live for a long time. They get want to have perfect art, perfect poetry, and stuff like that. So I think a lot of people would see them as snobbish in a way. That meaning they want to an elf who's interested in poetry is not something who'd sit and just learn a little poem or two. He's someone who would spend 35 years to be able to recite things and make the most beautiful poem, go and do things because they have time to do things. So they kind of delve really deep into topic. They're nerdy in a way that I think most humans in a fantasy world who has to provide for their family and food and kind of be the normal farmer or even the feudal lord who have to protect his keep from constant things. Meaning, I see the elves as like, oh, we take a decade or half a century to go out in the forest and build myself a little hut up in the beautiful little house to do my woodwork or work on my flute knowledge or stuff like
We'll
that.
plant this tree, and
Yeah.
someday we'll build a house in it.
Exactly. Then we build a house in it, and when we've been on vacation or adventured for a century or something like that. So yeah, so they have so in that way they're aloof in that. That's why I always have them to it takes a long while for them to react on things. Humans just go around causing mischief and all sorts of stuff. But
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Kind of tied off of that, an earlier thing in the chat, Gary was saying something about elves teaching humans magic or whatever. Who was better at magic? I think humans are better at magic, bar none.
All right.
Because
yeah.
Because of what you just described about elves taking their time.
Yeah.
Humans have shorter lifespans,
Yeah.
so they're driven to innovation quicker.
I agree.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that there can't be great elven mages.
Period.
Exactly. There are a few elves that,
Overall.
So I have it. Yeah, exactly. I would say that elves, but elves, I take that, have the sense that elves are more multi-classed more often.
Oh,
they
yeah.
don't focus on, meaning there are probably a lot of elves who are excellent spellcasters and stuff like that, but they want to be able to use a bow and they're self-reliant and self-sufficient in a way that most humans are not.
Now,
so to
the
speak.
bias of seeing through the lens of the D&D game, though,
Yeah.
where's all the elven spells? Where's all the elven magic items? What, we got
Yes.
boots and a cloak?
Yeah. Well, I want to have way more of it, so to speak. Way more of it. Yeah.
You see, we don't have any like game proof that elves are.
Yeah. But it's I
proficient
have it
in
that they
magic.
don't give that away to most humans and
Yeah.
others, so they don't end up in the
It's
books, so to
doing
speak.
Yeah,
culture
see,
research.
Gary's
Yeah.
correct, but Mac asked, if elves live so long, should elven PCs gain advantage when trying to find information about ruins and Earth? And the answer is, only if they care to, right? Because
Yeah.
and Gary said elves don't have the drive, focus, or expansive imagination of humans. Is there a common Elvish language Canadian? The answer is yes, just because it's just easier. I imagine there's probably different dialects all over the place, but just to make it easy, there's Elvish. Remember,
Yes.
Drow speak Elvish. Now there's an undercommon language, but
Yeah.
we'll get into that on Sunday again.
Yeah.
Language.
Yeah, but
think.
I agree with you. I would have that there is a common Elven language, and especially a written one, so
Yeah.
to speak. That then and then there are different ones that are physically separated, meaning the wood elves that live up in the northern Vespy and the ones in Grandwood will probably have a very different dialect. But also they've so long lived, which means that language probably evolves slower because most people tend to keep the way they talk through their whole generation, so to speak. And if a generation is 1,000 years or 500 or something instead of 50, that means that language probably changed slower too.
It's an interesting, thing that I
Elven
don't.
Chain.
I
Yeah.
mean,
And then, sorry, I was thinking that another thing that Mike, you said that humans are probably more talented in magic than elves. That's a little bit interesting because elves tend to be wizards rather than sorcerers.
What's a sorcerer?
Oh yeah, you are.
I'm
So
just
you're not
joking.
part of this. Yeah, you're not part of this discussion. You're old school, so you predate. Your game is before. So yeah, you know this invention that came in.
I
What
have
was
a
it?
question on elven magic items. Okay,
Yeah?
so boots of elven kind, what make you stealthy? Cloak of elven kind also makes you stealthy, right?
Mhm.
Are these traits that the elves enchant these items with because they want to be stealthy, or are elves just naturally stealthy? And if a human's wearing the cloak, he is stealthy as an elf. Does that make sense?
What, a cloak of Elvenkind?
Yeah.
Well,
I think it's both.
Is
I
it
would
meant
have it
to
as-
emulate the stealthiness of an elf, or is it an elf item to make them super stealthy?
no, it's an item that it's an item to make them emulate the stealthiness of an elf. Absolutely.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
Yeah, but I
So
would have it that both purposes, meaning they are both there to make elves better, but they also there to make human cousins that are kind of too noisy and
the cloak of
help them.
Elvenkind comes right from Lord of the Rings when she gives all
I
them
know
the
that.
cloaks.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
well,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. That's kind of yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
That
it's
too
like
generic,
elven armor, elven swords.
Elven
it's more
chain.
like chain. It's
Elven chain.
craftsmanship
Yeah.
more than enchanting. Because if a
Mhm.
human's making chainmail armor, well, that chainmail armor is going to do all kinds of things. So that sword's going to do all
Right.
kinds of things. But
Yeah.
with an elven item, it's just pretty.
So Elven Chain it came into being in Arcana, and what they said to it, the stats on it was it had the
Yeah.
movement rate of leather armor, and it was not subject to heat metal, like other because it's
Ooh,
made
that's
of yes.
huge. That's huge.
Okay, so
Yeah.
and it was there's non-magicals. It's basically if you go third edition, considered masterwork.
Yeah.
Yeah, not necessarily mithril, Sean Allen, but not necessarily in Greyhawk terms. So they have to be
Yeah.
mithril.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can make it from
Yeah,
mithril,
you
but
can,
that's
but
one of the exotic materials.
Elven
Yeah.
Chain is special, corrected by
Yeah.
the elves only, and so I don't allow any characters to start with it. It's rare given like evil ones tend to have it when they kill a powerful elf, and this is another discussion on Elven Chain allows the casting of spells while wearing metal,
Yeah.
but
Forgot about
so
that.
does multi-class. See, this is another thing. Back in the day, multi-class mages in first edition, fighter mages could wear plate mail. It's a little. I eliminated that and said no. That's the one thing I eliminated. No plate mail. Banded back
Yeah.
was where I went on it. So yeah.
Yeah. I've gone the other way with it. I've said that spellcasters can learn to cast spells in various armor. They just have to spend feats on it, so to speak. So if you want to diversify and become a spellcaster that can cast an armor, you can, so to speak. You can learn that you spend that instead of specializing and becoming better in magic. You can kind of spend that energy on learning to cast spells in various armor, so to speak.
So Big Mac asked Anna, do you think elves are superior cartographers because they're able to live long enough to make better maps?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
That's fair.
Yeah. Yep. I think and for two reasons. One is that they live long enough so they can kind of roam larger areas, and secondly, they seem to put so much emphasis into art than humans. So I don't think that elves, there's certainly possible for humans to be as good cartographers as elves, but I think elves are probably have more of cartographers that are good than humans in a way. But there's a counter argument to that, and they say that humans are so damn curious that they go everywhere. So you can make the opposite argument too.
There's also the Tolkien angle on that. How Elrond is the map expert. They go.
Yeah, exactly.
Visit.
Is the
Yeah.
If you
Go ahead,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
make the map.
No, please go on.
No, I wanted to go on a whole nother subject here that may be a real bone of contention with everyone because this is going back to old school. So here's a little theory of mine going back to elves and half elves and the direction that Gary was thinking. And I'm going to go back to 83 and Dragon 72 when the Cavalier came out. The Cavalier article is a first edition class. I don't know what happens to it after that. I don't care because it's in my game. But there's class level limits for all races back in the old game.
Yeah.
The Cavalier article comes out, and now remember it's different than Paladin. It's basically a knight, almost like a mounted knight. It allows humans, elves, and half elves. Okay, so I'm thinking,
but
what's
wasn't that? Yeah, sorry.
No, paladins were only human, right, at this point. So,
okay.
All right. Yeah. So this Cavalier, and they have unlimited class level limits.
Ooh.
See?
Okay, and so what is the thought process that Gary was trying to go with elves in this?
That's interesting because I don't get elves being feudal and knightly in the same way as humans.
Well, if he's just thinking about Greyhawk, You have
Yeah.
Knights of the Heart of the High
That's
Forest.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
And mounted, and there's rules for unicorns in there and all sorts of other mounts.
Yeah.
But you know, a cavalier is a unique class that kind of I love it and kind of disappears after I guess second. But what was he's
And
thinking?
Paladin is limited because back then you could only be lawful good, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And
Which
elves
limits
are normally
and
Cavaliers
all
can be-
the elven deities are chaotic good.
Cavaliers can be any alignment. They start off
Yeah.
at good, but you could become evil or whatever. I have evil cavaliers and neutral cavaliers running around all over the place.
I
Cavaliers
thought
can
they
be
had
any
to
alignment.
be lawful, but they could be good, neutral, evil. But that's just me.
No, yeah,
thinking
because the
back in
Cavaliers
there.
have their own code. I mean,
Okay,
the
yeah.
Black Knight is the Black Knight a what is he? It's I see him as a Cavalier, right? And he's not lawful good, and he's not chaotic
Go on.
good. What is he? He's probably chaotic neutral, right? I mean,
Okay, I thought
Eric,
that
the Cavalier.
that they had to be lawful in order to follow a code, but then they could be good, neutral, or
you can have your
evil.
own code too.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
don't say. Oh, gosh.
Oh God. Yeah.
Thrommel is
Ban-
Thrommel sent a
ban
letter,
Asher.
and it's all gone. It's all in the it's all in
Yeah.
the past with me now. I was just
Yeah.
curious if anyone thought on the elves what Gary was thinking about elves putting them
That's
into
my
that and giving them
knee-jerk
unlimited
reaction.
level advancement.
Yeah.
So
But that
Power
that's
creep.
because power creep, because the level limitation on demi-humans and especially elves was to compensate for their other things like night vision and they can see in the dark.
Game
and-
balance.
and-
What?
yeah, exactly, game balancing, and then in later editions that kind of you got more ways to diversify, which meant that you can make humans get they
Yeah.
could get extra skills and extra feet to compensate, and then you didn't have it. So
well,
yeah.
there's last point. There's still level limits in Player's Handbook for fighters and all the other stuff, rangers,
Yeah.
whatever for elves, but there's not for cavaliers. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm
that
trying to
is-
think
yeah.
why
Maybe it was
that's
just
the
an
case.
omission. They just
Oversight.
exactly. They just forgot to add it.
No, it specifically says you unlimited. It specifically says
Okay.
that there's no level
Okay.
limits.
Yeah.
So I was just curious if he had a thought process on where he was going with elves and that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
game balance in
No.
an RPG rather than a war game is a funny thing. Yeah, true. True. What class would not be in for an elf? Monk. There's a lot of classes that would not be in for an elf. A lot. And
Illusionist?
illusionists definitely not. Illusions are humans and gnomes only. Do not go to there are no halfling wizards, even though one got killed last week in my game. So
No
Elves.
assassins?
no, yeah, elves can be assassins.
They can't.
Yes, they can.
Okay.
I think they would be very suitable to be
All right.
assassins.
So here's some things. Elves can't be paladins. This is old school. Okay,
Yeah.
this is not.
oh yeah,
5e.
but that's because the alignment restrictions. Yeah. like you
Illusionist,
said.
monk, barbarian. This is okay.
Barbarian. Yeah.
Yeah. They can't be bards. The half elves and humans are the only ones that can be bards in the old
Yeah,
game.
that's interesting to me because
Yeah.
if there's any race that seems to be bardic by nature, it's elves.
Yeah.
But
in
bardic,
many
as
ways.
far as they're musical, there's a difference between being musical and being bardic. Bardic is a traveling storyteller,
Yeah.
which I see more. That's a tough one. I see more as a mix of both cultures, and that's why half elves are very good at bards
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
pull from both.
Okay.
True.
Maybe I'm
Okay.
thinking into it too much.
No.
Yeah.
I think you agree, but I can also think that a creature who lives a long time and who's interested in arts and stuff would be a good bard, so to speak. But they might be shy and not want to express themselves to humans and others as much. Elves and half elves are more
Yeah.
natural. That way, so, yeah.
Once again, I'm just doing the old school here. Third edition, fourth, fifth. It goes out the
Yeah.
wayside. Monks definitely not. Right? We all agree that.
Yeah.
Elves do
But
not
that's,
make.
that's it. But that's interesting because monks. I see it as culturally that's probably the reason.
Yeah.
But I see physically they would be good because they have slender physiques, meaning decks and stuff.
Yeah.
Is more
Yeah.
of a, yeah. But
And
I
there's some
agree.
others.
That's a tough one.
I wouldn't make elven monks much, so to speak. So yeah.
It's just, and once again,
Yeah.
who knows? There's some things that don't make sense back in the day, and there's some things that do make
Well-
sense back in the day, and you're free to change them. However, everyone's free to.
Yeah, but
Makes
the interesting
changes.
thing, the game was more mechanical in the way that the mechanics and classes and stuff controlled
Cold, you're
more of the
incorrect.
game in the earlier editions.
Oh,
Nowadays,
druid.
yeah, meaning in later editions,
Hmm.
the game mechanics have become more like a scaffolding and a support to the storytelling, not so much an essential. Meaning D&D has its roots in wargaming, where mechanics is king, and the storytelling and stuff is just more of a byproduct. And then you have later things like Fate and modern rule system, where the storytelling is king and the rules are just a sideshow, so to speak. And then there's various editions of D&D that are in various ends of the spectrum between hardcore mechanics and it's a game where you can win or lose and stuff, or storytelling with rules. So and that is nothing wrong with either. It's what style of game you want to have.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And we can all no one fears the
yeah, yeah.
BIC anymore.
Yeah, and I don't think that the elves they have in some ways they have been shaped, or especially in the early editions, they were shaped by mechanics in different ways that they are in some other editions when things have gone
Oh, pick. I'm
wild,
sorry.
literally
So
in various
Lindra
directions.
says there are no elven druids because they're already part of the world
There
and
are
part of the
elven
landscape
druids in Earth Arcana. Elves, they added
in Earth
druid
Oh
to
Arcana.
elves,
yeah,
especially
I
Sylvan
saw that.
elves.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
And Grugok, wild elves cannot be clerics.
Yeah,
They can
I
only
was
be
gonna say
druids.
it almost
They
okay,
seems
can only be
obvious.
druids.
yeah,
Grugok.
yeah.
Yeah.
If you were running a campaign where only humans were druids, then I would say they're elven posers.
Yeah. Right. Because half
Yeah.
elves
They
can be
want to live
druids.
that
Yeah.
that
Yeah, for
lifestyle.
me, it's who is part of the old faith culture, and I can clearly see a lot of half elves are definitely part of half elf, flan, elven,
Yeah.
and that can go back to the day, and they will definitely be druidic. But I wouldn't see that many pure elves, so to speak, to be old faithers that much. But there is a crossover between them because they have been this been neighbors for millennia, so there is an understanding and a kind of a similarities, and Elonna is one of them, meaning they've shared gods and knowledge and stuff like that over millennia. So I would have it that elves probably sees the old faith as the closest to them among the humans, and their deities, rather than a lot of the Origin and Sulwas and stuff that came in later. But that's more of a cultural thing than anything, so to speak. So few elven druids, but some half elven druids definitely.
Yeah. So thank you for the follow. The simple DM. Well, that's better. That's a good thing.
Hmm.
And elves as tree huggers. That's a yeah. And in that way, that's another thing. They probably have together or mutual interest with druidism, the protection of nature and forests and stuff like that. That's something that I think a lot of elves would share the
Yeah.
same sentiment as druidism and druids would do. So they have a common interest, and that way they probably sometimes they might clash because they if druids
That's
tend
true.
to live in forest and nature that elves live in, there might be discontent. But when there is competition from others, and then I wouldn't be surprised if elves, at least that's the way I would see it, that elves and druids and the old faithers will see each other as brothers in arms, so to speak, or at least have common interests that will help them to get along really well.
So
Oh, that's Canadian ancient gamer. Do elves have
of
sex?
course.
We had a funny saying back in our game group. We were trying to fool one of our players that started playing D&D, say that elves lay eggs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
The-
we were 15 years old, so you can do silly things when you're 15 years old. So it's kind of yeah, but it's interesting, and meaning if elves live for thousands of years, how many elven baby how often do elves reproduce, so to speak? Is it every century, every 500 years, or yeah, because two elves should have another two or a little bit over two elves too, otherwise there will be elves everywhere if they
well,
and they oh sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and that's another thing too is that I know you. I know you like the realist end of it, and like Tim loves the realism end of it too. But
Yeah.
sometimes in a fantasy setting, I just don't
You
want to think in depth
exactly.
on
You don't.
that
You
because
skip
it's
it.
just
Yeah.
my head will explode. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh, the
But I love
gestation
to. I
period and
love
all
to
that.
put
Oh
my
my
head on
gosh!
fire at times and
Right.
try. But it meaning. But there are sources you say. I think it was the original DM's Dungeon Master Guide said that elves have like a childhood of like 100 years or so, and then they start that age table, and then they start adventuring and stuff when they're a little bit over 100. So that means that at least they're that long before there will be more elves made, so to speak.
Must be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I look at it as from an explanation campaign point. I had a lot of elves killed in Selene during the early wars when I was a kid. When I
Yeah.
Monty Hall,
Yeah.
Mike had the
Yeah.
wars too, right? Mike, we had where you through all of Greyhawk, right?
You tore up the
Tore
I
up
had the
stuff.
wars, then the Greyhawk War set come out, and I was like, huh, I
Oh.
better do another Greyhawk War.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we all had our wars.
Oh, so you had to do it twice. So yeah.
Twice.
My explanation for all the PCs out there in the early '80s, because
Yeah.
multi-class, triple-class options were half elves, was that was the reason behind it. Hateful Wars, all that, and the Sorrowful Wars that I had, and everything,
Wow.
and that made sense why they're half elves, because the reproduction cycle on an elf takes so long, and and that just they.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that,
I see it.
try to
Half
explain
elves
it
are
that way.
because elves want to have fun and they're kind of chaotic, so they're not that rules bound, so they want to have fun at times, and it takes forever, and that's why I want to have the gray elves. So when they move in to become more fake creatures, that's when they don't reproduce and just play and have fun and do whatever they want to do and pursue their hobbies, and also they become the rulers of and the ones that the younger elves look up to and say, oh, you should govern and make all the difficult decisions, and we can go out and adventuring and do all the fun stuff, so to speak. So it's kind of a little bit of a stratification I wanted to do, and also as an
John.
explanation that elves can live on for a really long time, but they don't reproduce when they become middle-aged or older, so to speak. So they can live on for a long time, and that's when they start doing philosophy and politics and a lot of other things that are probably younger elves would not find that interesting when they would want to go out and learn things and fight and see the world and do various other things. But I also think that they are free-spirited things, and that's why you have half-elves and so on, because they want to experiment and have fun. They kind of break the rules more often than others.
And this is where I think I want to give Gary Gygax credit.
Yeah.
He didn't go the route of Tolkien with half elves. There are like 4 half elves. That's it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's it.
You have Elrond and a few others that are kind of
Elros and
unique.
Elrond
Yeah.
are both
Exactly.
half
They're
elven.
kind of, yeah. Exactly.
And they
They're
had to
kind of-
choose.
Yeah.
Elros went human, so he
Yeah.
lived 500 years and he dies.
Yeah.
Elrond says, I'm going to be an elf, and he's immortal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He didn't go that route at all. I think elves have
Yeah.
a max life expectancy of like 330 in Greyhawk. And I want to give him credit
and Gary
for that difference.
Gary made them more like a variant, but ordinary folks with some elfinish and made them into more of a thing. But I think that is also because he wanted them to be more of an asset, because you're supposed to play them as player characters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And a lot of the main characters in my campaign are half elves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just been
Yeah.
the cool thing from day one.
Yeah.
And most of them are Olana worshippers, just the way it was back then.
Yeah.
You had a limited amount of deities to access, and that was good.
Yeah. Did half elves have level restrictions as well, or were they? I forgot. How
Yeah, well, they
in
had
the-
severe. So they had
Okay.
severe level
Uh-huh.
limits, and
Okay.
we decided early on that if and this is the way my players are, and because we don't min max everything, that we were going to get rid of it. We got rid of level
Yeah.
limits because, like I
Yeah.
said, my main Gazumba is like 10, 11, 12 Fighter Clerk Mage. That's it. After 40 years, he's not
Yeah.
30th level or anything like that. We're not Forgotten Realmsing it here. And hopefully I don't say that too many times with Ed
No, but
Greenwood
if you're
and Eric
that many,
Menke
you will
on.
be a 30th level character if you're 10, 12 or something. So yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, remember, we're talking multi-classing here with
Yeah.
so a 10, 11, 12 multi-class character is like 14th at most in one class because of the
Yeah.
way that the thing scales up. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't make sense to us. My gosh.
Be sure when you get to talk to Greenwood, ask him about Elven and magic and all that. I feel like that got more development than Greyhawk. Not just the
What-
drow, but
Wait a minute. Wait. What are you?
the
I'm
surface
sorry.
elves.
What? Please say that one more time, Mike. I'm sorry.
When you see Ed Greenwood,
Yeah.
or talk to Ed Greenwood in the near far future, I don't know.
Sunday.
Ask him
Yep.
about Ask him about Elven magic
Okay.
and stuff like that,
I will.
because I
Yeah.
think the Forgotten Realms developed their Elven culture a lot better than Greyhawk, I suspect.
Yeah.
There
At
are.
least they got a lot more novels and fiction out for Forgotten Realms.
And my knowledge is only based on like two things: the Grey box set, and there was a Runes of Mythdraenor box set.
Mm-hmm.
I think just between those two things, they probably got better Elven support than what we got.
I know nothing about elves in Forgotten Realms, surface or
Oh,
I
me
know a lot
neither.
about dark elves from the Drizzt books, but I know nothing about
exactly.
surface elves.
That's about
nothing.
me too. So yeah.
You know,
And then
at
Are
all.
there dinosaurs in Greyhawk?
There are an Isle of Dread.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
That's
So-
but not in my Greyhawk and not in John Birch.
I actually found
Yeah.
a source where there are dinosaurs in the central part of the planet.
You showed that.
Uh-oh.
You talked about that. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Share it for John so his head explodes while he's on.
And my head too. Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
And now I'm.
It's an adventure.
No, this is something else.
Oh,
This
okay.
is a magic. This is a spell. Let me think.
Uh-oh. Well, that doesn't mean that they are there naturally, so to speak. It's that
No,
they're
this is
introduced.
evidence
okay.
of dinosaurs, not actual dinosaurs.
Well,
Sorry.
it's a summoning rather than a conjuration. Yeah. Or calling spell. So yeah.
What was that? Oh, if you go to here, I'll link it. My latest blog, I did another A to Z on spells.
Oh,
yes.
cool.
I was going to mention it at the end. There's a spell in there. There was a Dragon Magazine article about halfling druids. Go figure, they're druids.
Which one is it?
And let's see. This is way off topic.
That's all right.
Dragon 292. James Jacobs did a article called "Rune Skulls of the Aberrals," and it's basically dragon themed or dinosaur themed druid spells that are possessed by this halfling druid sect. It's very specific. Halfling druids who use dinosaur themed spells.
Cool.
And they discover this stuff because they find these old burial. An earthquake happens and they find some dinosaurs.
Well, if it's James Jacobs, it's got to be canon.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So we had James
anyhow,
on.
Check out the blog. Check out all the new spells I just dug up from the past, and have fun with that.
Definitely
awesome.
a fun one. I'm glad you did that another one because there's, like I said, from
The
the
first one
previous
was
one,
so
there's
good.
spells that I didn't know existed, and now we got some more that. I'm sorry, I just I put
There
this
are
up on
dinosaurs in
mine.
the Ghost Tower. I ran that
That's
a year
it.
ago, and
That's it.
I can't remember. Maybe. Oh, that's right. It's pterodactyls.
Yeah, they're pterodactyls there's also
Pterodactyls.
pterodactyls and is this adventure in Greyhawk? There are pterodactyls in Egg of the Phoenix as well. So and other dinosaurs, but you go back in time in that one. So I don't know if that's the case or
Kinda
not. I'm
old
trying to
school.
bookmark this
Yeah.
on my machine there. Done.
Yep.
Thank you, Big Mac,
Relics
for
of
that. There we
dinos
go.
in
Well, I didn't crash everything.
Head
See ya,
explosion.
long shot. Thanks, man. So
Feather dusters.
I'm trying to think of
Yeah.
other NPC. I know there's probably a lot more I'm missing. So getting back to the magic thing.
NPCs?
Well, one thing, the entire Circle of Eight until Theodane shows up is all human. All of them.
Oh,
There's no
right.
half elves.
Yeah.
There's one. Theodane's the only one, and he seems to be a little nutty, right?
Right. So what is it about Theodane where he's palling around with human wizards?
Right, and he's also palling around with a Greyhawk dragon.
Yeah, that too.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he's got a little.
But we
bit of
don't get half dragons from that or something.
Oh God.
I was going to say we talk about half elves and then dragon, but we know that in Bandit Kingdom we have Morgensthaler cause all sorts of problems that way. So yeah.
Yeah, Melf's Melf's a wizard as well. He's not super
They should
high.
have made
He's
Melf
not
in
super
Circle
high
of Eight.
level, and he's not a circle member. I was just saying the circle members. So there are. Let me tell you something. What's her name? Marquesa is a high level fighter mage, like 15 or something. Fighter mage. She's nasty, and I don't know what Carlos made her in the last one, the Marquesa Adventures, but she's an elf and she is really nasty.
There is some who would say Melf is part of the Ring of Five.
Okay.
Which I don't like.
I guess we have to ask Luke more about.
I can ask Luke in about 25, 30 minutes.
He wouldn't know anything about that.
No,
the conversation would last 5 seconds.
Yeah.
John, all right, stop the dino talk, everyone. You're driving John crazy.
Dino talk?
No more Thrommel, vampire, or dino talk in our elf talk. So there you go. So don't drive John crazy. John's probably sitting in a hotel room somewhere, or he's been traveling from work. He's exhausted, and you guys are torturing him.
Yep.
So Gygax did not have a Ring of Five. Okay, that's what Gary says.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So.
Good. Well, whoever wrote Greyhawk Ruins was smoking something.
Yeah.
Because the Ring of Five is ridiculous.
Where is that? So it's in Greyhawk Ruins?
It's in like the Power Tower section. It's like the black one.
Look, I got a little bit of a muscle now.
It's just a group of 5 wizards that seem to have nothing in common.
It's not in this. Is it in the original one or is it in this crazy thing?
Oh, you mean the? Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Canadian, for that. Yeah.
But yeah, Theodane.
Yes, John. I have a meeting with Luke in a couple minutes, right after the show. Believe it or not, for tonight for Gary Con. So yeah, Theodane just came out of the blue, right? And yes, it is nice, Patrick. Thank you for that. And so Patrick also gave me this, which is going to be going to the giveaways for the fundraiser, and that is a hardback copy of this. It's a reprint, but still it's very nicely done. So that'll be going into the giveaways for the fundraiser. So it's in Greyhawk Ruins, okay.
Okay.
But Greyhawk Ruins is weird because there's no like plot in Greyhawk Ruins. So awesome.
You just go in there and get treasure.
Yeah, that's basically it.
You were talking about Elven Wizards. I was reading Marklands earlier, trying to refresh my memory on the Vespy High Folk area, and the Lord of the High Elves is Kashafin.
Yes.
And he's a fighter mage, like 13th level mage. That's pretty high.
Yes, it is.
Named wizard.
Yes.
And then in Timeless Tree, you have a cleric 15th level.
Serenal? No, not Serenal.
Calendrian. Calendrian, yeah.
Yes.
That was a long one.
Yes. And
so there's a couple high level ones.
That is they worship the god of longevity, right?
Time,
yeah.
That
Thanks, Sean.
Like it, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to think, and then there was reference, I think in the box set, that the 5 rulers of the Elven rulers in the Spindrifts were all wizards.
Okay, yeah.
No other
because
details.
They're not
on
named. They just said
named.
that there were 5, and that's it.
5 of them.
Filter or blue can appear human or elf. Why just those 2 races?
And
I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you a rhetorical question back there, Gary.
Ooh,
who's Filter the blue and why those races? I don't know. I don't get Filter the blue at all.
I never used him, and I don't think
I think that was a really an attempt to make our the Greyhawk Gandalf. That's the only thing I can think.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You agree with me, Mike?
That sounds about
I
right.
guess Mordenkainen was not enough of a
Mordenkainen's
equalizer
neutral.
to.
Filder's
That's
good.
true. Yeah.
Gandalf's
Okay.
kind of good, right? He's good aligned.
Yeah.
Mordenkainen's not good aligned.
And what about, we have to ask Ed Greenwood about Elminster if he's good. So maybe that was Philodor needed to have to be an equal to Elminster and Gandalf or something.
I did promise to stay on the topic so that
So
I can
we
have
proceed.
Ed back on a future show and ask him all those other questions.
Okay, that's good. Okay,
on
then we
Sunday.
stay on topic.
We're going to try and stay on topic, please, everyone, on Sunday evening.
Lostrion found the Ring of Five. So the black one, Serten, Melf, Leomund, and Zagig. 5 wizards that have nothing to do with each other. Might even be from different points in the timeline. I think Leomund, Serten, I believe, died at the Battle of Emerald Meadows.
Yes.
Okay.
Some sources, Leomund, and later, like Paizohawk, I think, is dead as well.
Yeah, but at least he outlived.
And Zagig ascended.
Yeah.
So where the black one and Mel fit in, it makes no sense. It's terrible.
It's so, and we all agree that Carl.
Right,
we're bouncing all over. Like Carl Sargent did not get everything right, but he got a lot right, which is good.
Yeah.
And
well, that goes with all of us that deep dive into this. It's impossible to get.
Elminster's good according to Cold Steel, and I believe that. And but we're gonna show. I'm gonna show the picture of Elminster with his dark elven wife sitting there smoking his pipe on the rock. I got that one from Drow the Underdog. Trust me, I will have all that stuff ready to go for Sunday. Oh my gosh! I agree,
Jabberwock. Paizohawk, at least they did their homework and tried to make everything they created fit into the prior stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
They
Eric Mona did a great job.
Yeah, exactly.
Great job. Do surface elves prefer to live in treetop settlements? Canadian, the answer to that is, in my game, it depends on the race. Grey elves and high elves don't. Sylvan elves do. Okay, that's my difference as well, is that if you look in the gnarly forest and the Welkwood, there are a lot of treetop settlements always talked about. There's clans, and they live in the trees, and it's specifically, if you look in the Front of the Ashes box set, it talks about all of them. It also talks about
living within forests, or are they like Ewoks? They're actually up in the
a lot of them are up in trees.
Yeah, that's how I have them too.
In Sylvan elves, in the gnarly, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I have them all, but it depends a little bit on the availability of big trees. But since most of them have magical and nature abilities, so they can kind of grow them. Wait a millennium or something, and they have big trees, or a few 500 years or 1,000 or something like that. They can make big trees to live in. Yeah.
The wood elves in The Hobbit live in the forest, but their lair is like underground.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah.
Absolutely 100% true.
Yep.
But they party. Look, they just like that picture. They dance around the Rolfane Ralphil in the tree right there. Just like that's the actual picture of from Deities Demigods that I have up now. Yeah. I see, and if you saw when John did, we went to the Gistrul estate. It was with gardens and all. That's how I have Grey Elves. I have Grey Elves as I see Grey Elves as French nobility. Not, the kind of that feel. That's how I picture them.
I agree. I play them somewhat that way too. They're kind of aloof up there, so to speak. So they might be for different reasons in your campaign, Jay, and mine, but similar. A lot of similarities. Yep, definitely.
And once again, everyone can agree and disagree. Thanks, John, for that too. Everyone used the people of the testing.
Yeah, Gary actually asked a good question.
Now, isn't that from Dark Elves? They have the tests, don't they? Or is that the Loth test?
Selene. That's a Selene thing. Right?
Yeah. I use it to some degree, but I kind of tweaked it into that's when they want to they be tested by the Seldarin, so to speak, in order to they get the offer if they've done good enough, meaning they can pass the testing. Then they can embrace their Fae and enter and become Grey Elves.
The answer for me is no.
I've never used it.
I've read about it.
I've used it that way. So
where is it, Gary? What's the reference to that? Dryad origins is simple, Harley, and we'll talk about this on Sunday. When a Drow fails Lost test, they get turned into a Dryad around 5th, 6th, or 7th level.
Yep.
If they fail the Lost test, that's
what happens. I used to think that was a reward.
No, because it's extremely painful. You can't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool looking.
They're sterile.
Yeah,
They can't
they're cool
reproduce.
looking.
They're
Yeah,
bitter.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
But I have
no.
the surface elves, the high ones and so on. They have a similar, but different that the Seldarin have, that they test the elves, so to speak. You can avoid it and simply say I don't want nothing with it and go and live like Keek done and
let's
others.
There you go. You just said Moonarch, and the I'm
Let's
not a
see
big
here.
I'm not a big Saheen fan at all, and that's why I don't
Yeah.
use it. The Moonarch, I'm not.
Yeah.
It's so Tolkien-esque where they just they get the moon bow in their eyes, and then they go, oh, I gotta
Charlotte to
leave.
Lender
I gotta leave
Isle.
Greyhawk
I don't.
and go
No,
to
I don't.
see Len on Lender Isle. I don't get it.
No, I don't have it that they move away that way, but I
Yeah.
have it that, and the
calling
testing
away,
is
no.
done every festival when the Selene is full, so to speak, at night.
Right.
Then there are gates opening to the Feywild and other Elven realms.
Feywild.
And and that's when elves that are worthy enough, according to the Seldarin gods, they can then enter into that, and they get some powers.
These elves
and
immediately
things and
travel
stuff
to
like that.
Lender Isles. What becomes of them is not known. Only Len knows there, Gary, what
Yeah,
happened to
that's
him.
true.
Because
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Because she just doesn't. They go to Lender Isles. What happens to all the
Two
humans on
options.
Lender Isle? It drives
But
me.
Once you
just-
go to the Lender Isles, there's only two options. One, they do what Anna said. They go Feywild. Or two, they go across the sea, Tolkien-esque, and then they just end up
Yeah,
back
living
on
somewhere
Orc
else
again.
forever.
I think it's
Yeah.
I think it's a complete miss by Sargent and forgotten
Yeah.
from the Ashes.
Yeah.
It makes
Terrible.
no sense.
But when you take Lindor Isles, I don't get the sense that it's overwhelmed by a whole bunch of old elderly elves who want to go somewhere
No.
else. I don't get that sense when I read Len's adventures and stuff. It's mainly a
Yes,
human
Naz.
realm.
Yes,
Like
Naz,
in any
exactly.
setting, but-
He was trying to make the Grey Havens in that edition, and that's Philidor is Gandalf. I'm telling you, that's what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh,
I totally bought into Spindrift elves being superior naval, a superior naval force. So
I
much,
like that.
that was the only way to explain why the Great Kingdom didn't ever take them over, the Sea Barons or
yeah.
the Barbarians.
Yeah, I have it as there's something, just ideas of me, because the rest of the world, there are elves living other places, so to speak. So I take it that they can go visit them, travel, and that's why the Spindrifts is one of these coastal areas. And
there's
also,
a lot of elves in Sundi too. We didn't even talk about that.
yeah, but they are kind of landlocked as much as Selene are. But that's the thing. They don't. They lack harbors. That's meaning, and that's the other interesting. What about the Wild Coast? Why wasn't that part of Selene? Why did they stop and not? Because it used to be kind of an empty area.
Yep.
Because
Why is it not-
that's easy
sense.
on that because there's so much chaos going on there, and there's so many
But that's
humans.
after the humans came in. But what about?
Because
They had to have
once
owned it.
again, the Sylvan Elves don't necessarily. There's a lot of Sylvan Elves in that barrier, in the woods, in the Sus,
Okay.
and the
Mm,
Grey Elves and the High Elves don't want to just left the Sylvan Elves to their own being, and that's
Okay,
a
so
natural barrier.
Yeah, so they
navals.
actually didn't go to the coast much then. Okay.
Yeah, that's my thought on that. I mean, it could-
Okay. Yeah. No, it's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, because I always wondered, okay, that's the way it looks like, and why would that be, so to speak? So yeah,
I'm sorry.
no scurvy. Yeah.
Okay,
They
so
would never cut down the trees to bullshit.
let's do some shout outs here. Unfortunately I have a hard stop at 10 because I got this meeting
Yes.
with
I already
Luke
did my
Guy.
shout out.
I'm sorry. I don't
Okay.
mean to but
Yeah, I don't have that many shout
Mike,
I
outs.
threw up my blog post, so there you go.
That's it, Mike? Wow.
Yeah.
All right, let me hit this
that's
up.
all I
By the
have.
way, tomorrow. So, all right, we'll get to that my part here. I'm going to hit some wrong buttons because I always do. So, Mike has another list of spells. That's awesome. I love that because you got references in there that everyone can utilize in their campaign. And it's Greyhawk
it's so
flavored
cool.
for the most part, which is really fantastic on that work, Mike. Thanks. Hey, what else is going on?
I don't know. I got a couple of ideas going around up in my head, but I'm not going to commit to anything right now.
Okay.
No
commitments.
X or Y spells I can think of. So someone needs to help me out there.
Wow. I'll have to think about that. Sometimes, Sometimes you got to punt, right? It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. All right, Anna, what's going on?
Well, I continue my scanning in lens legacy, so to speak. That's going on. So I've scanned well over 300 pages of stuff. So there's a lot of stat blocks for several of the towns and stuff on Lendor Isles, and there's so that is coming, and I have a new batch to put into the Len archive, and then we'll have to figure out exactly how to publish that and make it available to everybody. So it's coming as OCR'd PDFs. So that will be coming. Hopefully not in too distant of a future. I have like 4 or 5 more boxes to come, so there's probably a few thousand pages to scan. But I'm doing my best. So I spend some hours a day scanning every day. So and in the meantime, I'm also doing a first big render on the new generation of Greyhawk maps. And to date, now it's gone on for 1 day, 22 hours, and 14 minutes. And so I hope that electricity will not bail out on me in the next 2 days, because I'm got to 41. So it will be a 5-day render. To render an area of about 500 miles by 500 miles, roughly.
5 days of computer just running.
Yep. I have one computer just crunching.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. That's why I need to have a faster computer. So yeah, instead of 5 days, I can probably bring it down to 12 hours or something like that in one of the, So I need a really beefy workstation to crunch on this. So yeah,
the detail lens is so huge. So Anna, you could actually be mining for Bitcoin with that machine that you're going to get, man.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
The one I want to, definitely.
Oh my gosh.
The one I have is like 4.5 years old or something like that, 5 years old. So it was the top of the line 5 years ago, but now it's just a decent gaming rig in when it comes to performance. So it's but it's there. So I'm working on that, and we also I'm going through a whole bunch of stuff to publish. So I'm sorry, the Len project and ramping up the new Greyhawk maps have taken most of my time lately, so to speak.
That's okay. That's great.
Yeah. So it's coming. So the Len stuff, I think it's important. So I've done almost 1 box, and I think there's like 5 boxes. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's 5 boxes to go through of stuff. So there's way more to go. So, but it's interesting. I found one little cool, like a not so accurate story about Lendor Isles. That was kind of a little cool document. So there's some nice tidbits in there, and I also have to sort out, because a lot of it is just articles that he printed from various other places. So I have to make sure that we don't just, because that is something for someone else, that's copyrighted by someone else. So I have to make sure it's Len's original material that I put there, not something that he just printed out that came from somewhere else. And there's also some personal emails between Len and someone else, and I'm not going to send them out unless we have to talk to the other person involved in the email to see if we can do. But those are more like discussions of the other stuff that we're going to publish anyway. So I think that's the
awesome.
But but it's coming. So Len's legacy will hopefully as much, and there are a bunch of other people involved in the Len archive, and they are more involved than me. I'm the late comer to this, simply because I had so much Len material. So we go to assemble stuff that Len have sent us, and the other ones an email and stuff, so we can collect as much of Len's legacy as possible, and make that available. So that's the idea.
All right, so I'm going to go through this quick. Tomorrow night, the finale of adventure number 898. Okay, and that is Trials of Legion Part 5 Crossing into Steel. That is Gamescape 3D sponsored giveaway. He's giving away some of the great roads you see on my terrain, and the wagon sets he has for 3D printer files. Really, really cool. That is tomorrow. What is the secret of steel? If you haven't read Greyhawk Adventures, hopefully you haven't. You may find out tomorrow night. One of the PCs, Garrett, got his heart ripped right from his chest by Panjashek with a 6th level spell, Sacrificial Heart, ripped it right out. So we got 1 dead already in the party, and now they're fighting a Balrog and Panjasek, and we'll see what happens with the group there. And that's tomorrow night. We finish that up. Sunday, massive, big time. Gavin, is the big one for this year as of this Sunday. Everything about Dark Elves. Ed Greenwood, Elminster himself, Tony Winslow Brill. She is an author in the New Candle Keep book. Okay, so she's got a big name too. Eric Mengi, you know Eric from Living Greyhawk days, and Anna and I will hopefully take the Greyhawk side. Well, at least I will. And Tony and Ed will be on the Forgotten Realms, and Eric will be somewhere in between, and we're going to have at it. And
Gary, try to slip Sea Elves while you're in there.
Yes. And Snow Elves and all sorts of stuff.
I promise to have my preparation for our end of Greyhawk, and we're going to see where this discussion goes. We'll have fun on this. This is going to be note the start time, 8:30 Eastern, an hour late, because Ed will not be on until 9:30 Eastern. So myself and Anna and Eric and Tony are going to BS and talk some things here and there.
I might not
talk
miss
about
all of this.
what's going on, and yeah, Ed will be on late. This will be a late running show. Okay. So yeah, exactly. We have a Clobber. Clobber will kick Drizzt ass any day, right? So that is yeah. All right. What's going on? Yeah, exactly. What's going on next? The week after is a big week too. We're going to start it off. We did Elves. We're doing Dwarves. We copped out. We're doing Dwarves on Wednesday next week. Dwarves at Greyhawk. I think it'll be an interesting discussion.
Think we fumbled over Elves?
Yes.
Yeah,
So
we need help on this one.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Dwarves at Greyhawk next Wednesday. Then I have 2 adventures going on at the same time special next week.
Yeah.
You're going to go, where's 899? Well, Adventure 900 starts on 900th one, The Ancient Awakening. It's an Infinite Dimensions giveaway too. All right, and that'll be in the Pomarsh Principality Ulick area with the Bloody Brethren. So we'll celebrate. But 899, that'll be 2 weeks. It will be going on in between at the same time as on a Saturday night special. Saturday night special adventure number 899, A Dying Icy Heart. Anna will be playing Imri. Mike Disney's back. Chuck Cumbo's back. And unfortunately, Amy can't be on. So I have our friend, the Time Lord's wife, playing. And she's going to be playing Gary, a specialty priestess of St. Benedor in this one. So a new character. So we get to see that. And that'll be a one-shot Saturday, but it'll fit right in with what's going on with the other group. And then after that, lastly, the week after, I have, and this, I think Bloodwild Steve gave me this idea. I got to go back and talk about these, and we're going to revisit the Wall of Fame, and I'm going to try and get some guests on who have a special place in the heart for yes. So we're going to talk about how these adventures went in my campaign and some ideas for you. So. And Melf's great, and Melf's going to be on in 7 minutes on my Zoom to talk to me about Gary Con. So that's what's going on. I probably forgot some stuff. Please note this: Underdark Uprising is February 19th and 20th. It's coming. Whatever you can give to St. Jude, please. If you it doesn't matter what channel you do it on. There'll be 8 different stream channels with 9 different streams, because I got Tim in the morning, 4 a.m. in the morning on Saturday. Underdark Uprising is coming. I've changed my whole plot line based on what Eric Boyd's idea last week, so I got a little bit of changes. The Underdark is coming. It's going to be fun, and it's all going to be direct donations through Teltify to St. Jude. The goal was $5,000. We have 4 major sponsors on: Reaper, Troll Lord Games, Infinite Dimension, Stratagem, all have stepped up big time. We got a lot of great stuff. I'll give more details, and I'll have a Gavin show the Sunday before it goes off to discuss everything. Let's raid into. We're gonna raid into Will Wicked Studios. He's got his Greyhawk game going on. Thanks everyone. I know I'm kind of I want to make sure I'm ready for this tonight. I got to get in the right mindset. These guys. Yep. Oh, wait. We're gonna say hello. Let's everyone say hello as we get off here. Someone's just hopping on right now. It's Luke himself.
Wow.
So there you go. So we'll say we'll end the stream as Luke's coming on, and then we'll exit out there. So hopefully. Now we're gonna wait 10 minutes.
See. Yeah, hopefully.
He's
yeah.
connecting. Hopefully
Yeah.
it's good. Everyone casts acid arrow. Yes, if ever we remember what happened there. Hey, Luke.
Boing.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
We're finishing up our
Luke.
stream right now, and we're gonna exit it right now. Sit tight. So
Good
I
timing.
will stand by.
stand by,
Okay,
and
perfect.
everyone says
Yeah.
hello on Twitch. Thank you, and I'm going to go to my exit screen here, and we'll see everyone tomorrow night.
Yeah. Bye.
Boom, 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 boom. All right, raiding into Wicked Studios. Let me set this up. So, Anna, Mike, we got through that.
Oh yeah, we survived. It was a tough one, but we survived it. I'm not sure how we will survive next week.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow night. Into Wicked.
Okay, so yeah.
Just make sure this worked well. I think it did. There we go. Yep.
I can't wait to get the Gary Con swag. I had converted my badge